All right, let's talk about something that's probably tripped you up at some point if you're an iOS developer. It's a classic UI puzzle, clipsToBounds versus masksToBounds. So which one should you use, right? When do you use one over the other? And the really confusing part is, why do they sometimes seem to do the exact same thing, but other times they break your layout in totally different ways? And look, this isn't just some abstract academic debate. Getting this wrong is the source of some really frustrating visual bugs. Like when your shadows just vanish, or when your rounded corners just won't round. But hey, don't worry, we're gonna get to the bottom of this and solve this puzzle once and for all. Okay, so at a quick glance, these two properties look almost identical. You've got clipsToBounds, which is a view thing, and it deals with subviews. Then you have masksToBounds, which lives a little deeper on the CALayer, and it handles sublayers. And interestingly, they're both turned off, set to false by default. So let's break them down one by one. Okay, first up, clipsToBounds. The easiest way to think about this is like putting up a fence around your view. If you set clipsToBounds to true, that fence goes up. Now, any subviews, any child views inside it that try to stick out past that fence, they just get chopped off. Anything outside the parent's boundary becomes totally invisible. Pretty straightforward, right?
All right, now let's talk about its partner in crime, masksToBounds. This one works on the CALayer level. And if you're not familiar, the layer is what's actually responsible for drawing your view on the screen. This property is super important for visual effects. I mean, if you've ever tried to get rounded corners using corner radius, you absolutely have to set masksToBounds to true. Otherwise, the content inside just spills right over those corners you worked so hard to create.
So, okay, we've got one for views, one for layers. They seem to operate in their own little worlds, but man, their effects can feel so similar. So, what's the real connection here? What's going on under the hood? And this is the key. You have to remember this. In iOS, every single UIView has a CALayer that backs it up. The view is what you interact with. It handles the touches, the layout, but the layer does the actual drawing. They're two sides of the same coin, totally linked together. And that relationship between the view and its layer, that's where the secret is. It's not that one is just like the other. It's that one is literally built right on top of the other. And here's the big insight. clipsToBounds is really just a nice little shortcut. It's what we call a convenience property. Basically, the folks at Apple who built UIKit knew we'd be messing with layers a lot, so they gave us an easier way to access a common layer setting right from the view, right? And boom, there it is, the whole mystery solved. When you write view.clipsToBounds equals true, all your code is actually doing behind the scenes is reaching down into that views layer and setting view.layer.masksToBounds equals true. That's it. It's just a pass-through. They're directly connected. Okay, so you might be thinking, if one just sets the other, then what's the big deal? Why does this cause so many problems? Well, the issue pops up when you start wanting to mix and match different kinds of layer effects. And this brings us to the most infamous problem of all, the shadow and corner radius trap. I'm sure you've been here. Your goal is simple. You want a view with beautiful rounded corners and a nice drop shadow. So you set your corner radius and your shadow opacity. But to get the corners to work, what do you have to do? You have to set masks to true. And what happens the second you do that? Poof, your shadow is gone. Why? Because the shadow is drawn outside the view's bounds, and masksToBounds just clipped it away along with everything else. The classic solution, and really the best way to handle this, is to use two views. You have an outer container view that just handles the shadow, and an inner view that has the rounded corners and the clipped content. Yeah, understanding that shadow trap is pretty much the key to mastering this whole thing. So let's pull everything we've talked about together into a super simple cheat sheet you can reference later. So here you go. Think of this as your go-to guide. clipsToBounds, that's a UV property. Its main job is clipping child UI views. masksToBounds, that belongs to the CALayer, and it's what you need for layer effects, especially corner radius. And the most important thing to remember, setting clipsToBounds on the view automatically sets masksToBounds on the layer for you. Simple as that. And let's wrap up with this final thought because it's really important. This whole discussion, it's not just for acing a technical interview. As the source material points out, this exact distinction is the root cause of so many real-world UI bugs. So next time you're coding, think about this. What subtle visual bug in your own app might finally click into place now that you know the secret?